Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast episode of She Speaks Her Mind, your go-to, your comfort person, your host, Anna Pedron. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to my 5 viewers who's been listening. Just kidding. In all honesty, I really want to say I appreciate every single person who has been tuning in lately or who has been there from the very start, because I'm actually very surprised with all the people who's been listening to my podcast episodes. Who would have thought that someone like me would be making a podcast and someone like you would be listening to it for 20 to 30 minutes, however long, of me just yapping. But I promise you, I think it's worth it. Okay? I've only been starting doing this podcast thing 5 or 6 months now, but I've just been consistently posting and we are slowly growing. Not slowly. We are kind of growing rapidly, seeing the numbers grow every single day with how many people are tuning in to every podcast episode. I am shooketh to the chorus. If you've been here long enough, there are some podcast episodes where I talk about my childhood, getting really vulnerable with what I talk about in my past. It's something that I would not share online, but when I started opening up about all of this, I realized there are so many people out there like you guys who have been in the same boat as me or are going through it and having to relate to the same issues that I've gone through or is going through. But that is why I'm here, because I didn't know what to do when I was at a time in my life where I was going through a lot of fucking trauma and I didn't know how to deal with it, especially feeling lost, lonely, and not knowing how to cope with things easily because I didn't have someone to follow me along through this healing and spiritual journey. So this is why I'm here, because I just want to give my personal take and tell you guys how maybe you guys could be dealing with a situation like that. I think we're just going to get straight into this episode because I know I'm not the only one that is going through tough times being in my 20s, and a lot of my viewers here, the age range of people that listen to this podcast is around 18 to 28. So I think a lot of people can relate to what I'm going to have to say in this podcast episode, and just know that you are not alone. I want to say that I am in my mid-20s. I am 25, turning 26 in June. I still feel like I should be maybe 22 or 23 at this point, because I lost a few years in my life because of the pandemic. And I feel like a lot of people can relate how we feel a lot younger. We lost our years doing absolutely nothing and literally locked up in our houses. Let's just say that. Let's just put this into reality here first, because I know that is something that we all can relate to, even if you're not in your 20s anymore. But I really don't feel like me being 26 in June feels right. Okay, so now that I want to get into this, let's talk about our 20s. Let's talk about everything, and this podcast episode might be a little long, so grab some popcorn, grab a drink, eat some snacks. This is going to be a long episode. I'm not going to lie, thinking about being in my 30s is honestly scary to me. I don't know how to feel about that. I still feel like I need to get my shit together, even though I know I'm okay where I am right now. I have so many aspirations, goals, and things that I want to pursue in life, but why do I feel so fucking rushed? I feel like that anything that I have to do in life, I feel like I should be getting my shit together right now because of just people around us telling us what's, in quotations, better for us. Me and my boyfriend of almost 9 years, crazy, have been talking about what it's like just being in this world of today's age and having the need to rush. We talk about these things a lot, and it just doesn't feel right when we have to follow on someone else's timeline with how things should go. But what I do know is that I do trust in divine timing and what the universe has in store for me. So I'm going to give you guys a little story time, because what's a podcast episode of mine without telling you guys personal experiences, because that's what this podcast is all about if you don't know already. So, also, my alarm clock went off to say that I should be getting ready for bed, and it went off at 7:30. That's how you know I am not a little kid anymore. I'm turning into a grandma. Anyways, moving on. Me and my boyfriend have always been talking about getting married, having kids. I'm so comfortable talking to him about anything and everything. So the fact that we can talk about, marriage, having kids, lifelong goals together, I would say that's kind of a slay. because in today's world, I feel like a lot of people are just scared to delve into a relationship. Anyways, before moving out and moving in with my boyfriend, my parents literally have been begging me and my boyfriend, which his name is Brayden, and they've literally been begging us, trying to get us to get married before we move in. And to me, that did not sound right, just because it's not on our timing. And even though we do want to get married, we do want to do all of that, just because my parents or my grandma, anyone else says that, I'm not going to do what they say. Even though that is in our timeline, one thing we should never do is listen to everything that our parents say, because not everything they say is going to be right. And it's honestly just how you feel with your heart and your gut telling you you have to do what feels right in order for you to move on. Anyways, now it's been over 3 years of me and Brayden living together, but I think he might be putting a ring on it soon. I don't know when, maybe in the near future, in a year or two. I don't know. That's getting close. Let's talk about Facebook, because every time I open that app, I swear, everyone's popping out babies. Everyone's getting married. Everyone's buying a home. Everyone has a perfect career. And I'm here like, holy fuck, I'm just a content creator. Just kidding. But actually, no, not kidding, because that is what I'm actually doing. And I hate comparing myself to some people that I see on Facebook, because I'm just like, holy shit, what am I supposed to do with my life? But everyone is on a different timeline, and I should not judge my life with how they're living their life, because I absolutely love my life and I just can't compare myself like that. Now let's go back to if me and Brayden were to get married right now. I don't have any close girlfriends. This scares me so much, because imagine if I had to have a wedding right now. I wouldn't even know who are my bridesmaids. How am I supposed to have a wedding when I don't have a lot of friends? And I know that's not the case. I could always have a small wedding and just invite all the people that I'm really close to. But thinking about like girlfriends that I have, especially close ones, I don't even know. Those are one of my kind of embarrassing thoughts that I have to myself. And I don't know if anyone else has that, because when I open up Facebook, going back to that, there are so many people that I know that have such a big wedding. And I'm here like, I don't even know 50 people. But what I do know now, as I'm in my 20s, is that our 20s is going to be the most uncomfortable years of our lives. And you may not just have heard it from me, but I've heard Mel Robbins talk about this, and seeing her insight when she was in her 20s, it made me feel a little bit more at peace with knowing that I'm going to be okay. I am okay. And I feel like feeling lost, confused, and unsure is just a part of our path. I've always wondered that if we had everything figured out, I feel like we would all be okay. But the whole part of life is going through all of this with what we're going through right now. If you don't know where to go, what to do with life, feeling stuck, living day to day with no result, I think it is okay to normalize that. And I've always heard this, but we need to remember that whatever age we're at right now is the youngest we will ever be. And especially us still being in our 20s, we have so much to live for and so much to look forward to. What I will tell you, if you are in your 20s, do what your fucking heart desires. Move out of your hometown, get out of the environment that you're so attached to and make you want to be out of your comfort zone. If you hate your job, quit and go find a new one. If you want to start that business, what are you waiting for? And since we are in our 20s now, you don't have to be asking for permission to travel wherever you want. If traveling is something you desire, girl, that is something I'm doing this year. I told myself there's no more backing out, even though I'm scared shitless to be either traveling alone or traveling to a new country. It's really time to step out of our box and go do the thing that we've wanted to do. This is a big one. If you have any toxic friends or people in your life and you've been wanting to cut them out, this is your fucking sign. I've been telling people this for years. It's to just cut people off if they're treating you like shit. In some circumstances, you can always fix a friendship. You can always rekindle it in some way. But if they did you dirty, if they did you wrong, or you just know in your gut that this person is not right for you, cut them out. There's literally no excuses for why you should have them in your life if they're serving you no purpose. Obviously, there's going to be some friendships where you're kind of more like acquaintances and you just say hi to them when you see them. Those are fine. I think there's different levels to friendships, but when you're around someone more often than usual and you consider them a close friend, but they're toxic, you got to do what you got to do. Sorry to interrupt you guys during the middle of this podcast, but the mic cut off once again, and I think it's only for a certain amount of clips. But I found out the reason why this happens, and it's because of the wire that's connected to the mic. There's a slight bend into the connector, and that's why every time I move the mic slightly, it disconnects right away. I'm gonna have to order a new USB cable so that this doesn't happen again. Anyways, let's get back to the episode. I know it's easier said than done, but us as individuals, we are the only ones standing in the way of our dream life. Don't get me wrong. It really is easy to feel the need to blame it on others, but it really comes down to ourselves. And the only thing that we need to do is get rid of that fear, get rid of that noise, and just start taking action. And I'm gonna be honest with you, being where I am right now with having all that I have, I didn't think that everything that I did was possible for me at this stage of my life, because I did not think that I would be here today, as in like, I did not think I would be alive. I know it could be triggering to say for some people who maybe just have heard this episode right now, or you thought, holy shit, like, girl, you okay? I'm okay now. I promise I'm okay. But honestly, I did not think I would be where I am today with talking with my career path, moving out on my own, having the relationship I do with my parents, being in such a fucking grateful and healthy relationship with the person I want to be with. And all in all, just being happy. So if I can come out of a dark hole and going through all the trauma that I did, I know you guys can too. And if you're going through something right now, I promise you it's gonna get better. Get the help you need. Start taking care of yourself. Reach out to someone if you have the chance. I have many vivid memories of me just locking myself in my room, and I would just want each day to be over and sleep all the time. I don't know if that was anyone else, but I would literally sleep the day away. I would just kind of make it a challenge for me to see how long I could sleep in for, and always look on the clock and say to myself, oh, I could sleep in longer. Let's see how long I can sleep for. And it would be 5 p.m. But those days are over. I'm very glad they are over, because we wouldn't be where we are today. So with this being said, to all my younger listeners, please prioritize your mental health and your well-being. I remember when I was old enough to go to the gym, that was actually my only escape from reality. Once I put my headphones on, it was game over. So please find something within your day-to-day life that's going to fill you up with joy. Give yourself a chance to be able to move your body every single day. You don't have to be going to the gym. You can always find a workout video on YouTube and just do a whole 30-minute workout routine, because it is a privilege to move our bodies. And I'm only being grateful now because as I'm getting older, girl, I can't do the things that I used to do. But what I would do to be a kid again, to even think about being a kid, I would have no worries, fears, anxiety, the fear of what people would think about me. And being a kid was just so simple. It is no lie when junior high teachers, high school teachers tell you that time goes by so fast and we're gonna graduate and have our own family one day. It is no joke. It feels like that was just yesterday when it was said. So what I'm gonna say to all my listeners that are still in high school right now, please make all the memories you can while you're still in school. You're gonna miss those memories, and you're gonna miss the people that you're gonna be around. Maybe you're not going to miss everybody, but you are going to miss the fact that if you're still in high school, you have all these friends still. It was just fun that way. So make all the memories you can now, because I'm sorry to say, but this is reality. Once you graduate from high school, move on to university, and you end up graduating from university as well, sometimes you're not going to keep in contact with a lot of the people that you met or were really close friends with, unless you really make that effort to keep that friendship going. But for the most part, high school is a time where you were kind of friends with everybody. Anyways, it's getting really dark out. This phone brightness is still keeping my camera quality still intact here, or else it would be really gritty and I don't know if I would continue to film, but I'm going to try and finish before it gets really dark out. Moving on. The easiest thing about being a kid is that we didn't have to pick or choose who we were friends with, because back then it was so easy. I would just be playing with whoever was my neighbor that was the same age as me. And I remember a time where I would always play with these two siblings that were right across the street from me. And we would always get together every single day after school. And it was the best time, because I also became really close with their parents. and I would always be coming over for dinner, and that was almost like another escape from reality because I didn't always want to be going home, and it felt like I had a family when I did go over to their house, which is crazy. But now at this age, we do really have to be aware with who we have in our lives and who we want to be surrounded by, because you just don't want to be surrounded by negativity and toxicity and just being surrounded by the wrong people. That's not who we want in our lives. You really need to be picky and trust your gut with who you have in your life, because little do you know, they could be praying for your downfall or quietly talking about you to others. And that is something I'm learning, but it's so hard at times when I just want to be nice to everyone. So I know that is a form of people pleasing, which I'm also trying to get out of, but I'm almost out of there, and it feels so fucking good because I'm not out here trying to be a people pleaser my whole life, and it's annoying. It's annoying for me that I have to be the way I am to people when that's not who I want to be. But at least I recognize that, because if I didn't, this would be a continuous cycle. You know, I just want to be respecting myself for that reason, because being a people pleaser, we need to learn to respect our boundaries. Guys, it's getting dark out here. Oh my gosh, I should have filmed like a little bit earlier, but we are going to continue this because it is okay if you cannot see me anymore, because I feel like a lot of you guys just listen on Spotify, but somehow you guys find me on YouTube too. Okay, never ever fucking doubt yourself for what you want to accomplish or any goals you want to chase. Don't tell everybody your goals, because I realized in my personal experience that there are people that are going to be doubting you, put you down, and won't believe in you. With this being said, I had to stop telling my parents with what I wanted to do in my life, because every time I told them something about being in the content creation space, they always thought that it would be a side hustle and that you wouldn't really be making any money from doing things on the internet. But little do you know, the world we live in now, you can make the most money from doing anything on social media. If you're wanting to be in the space with just being in the social media industry, whether it's being a content creator, being a marketer, or just doing something for someone or selling things, it is easy to make your book. Maybe it takes some patience, but with doing some research and, putting a little bit of effort in there, it is so dang possible. But anyways, they doubted me. My parents doubted me, and the people that I was friends with at the time, they also doubted me, but they were very quiet about it, but I could just tell that something didn't feel right. Okay, I changed the settings on here, so I had to stop the podcast for a bit and figure out what I needed to do to up the exposure, and here we are, looking better than ever. So what was I saying? I had a lot of people in my life, these friends of mine, have doubted me when I started stepping into this content creation space. And even today, there's still people talking, and it's something that it's just very inevitable for me to stop that from happening until I tell myself I'm doing just fine and I'm right where I need to be. I'm doing fucking amazing. I am thriving, and I don't need to be surrounded by this negativity. So what you will find in your 20s is that you're going to go through a lot of trial and error with trying to find the right people in your life that actually want you to do good. I know it's really scary to think of the unknown, but this is just all part of your self-discovery and learning more about ourselves. Losing friends, breaking up with friends can be a very odd, scary, confusing feeling. I think it's something that we can all relate to. There are so many different scenarios why it happens to us all. Even though I'm still in my 20s, wishing I could find the perfect friend group, I know that there are so many people out there in this world we will meet one day. They will just eventually show up in our lives magically, and these new friendships that we build with them will be the most amazing thing ever that has happened to us. So you don't have to find these friendships, you don't have to chase for them, you don't have to forcefully try and find it, because it will come. But it's also important to remember that even though some of us wish to have these really big friend groups, it's also important to remember that we want quality over quantity type of friendships. So this is for all my big dreamers out there, but when you have a dream or a passion and maybe you're pursuing it right now, don't quit even if things get slow or are making no progress. The universe likes to test us in very different ways, and literally just love every single process of your journey. I know so many of you guys that have messaged me of you guys going through a breakup or are going through something, dealing with boys, and the fact that my podcast keeps you going. But let's talk about relationships for a second. I'm going to go very deep into this. I'm going to give you guys my little story time. So my parents are Filipino, and if you guys don't know, Filipino parents can be very strict, and it kind of sucks that I did have them at one point that they were very strict on me, so I had to deal with that shit. But anyways, they never wanted me to date. I had to wait until maybe I was a little bit older, but I don't know what that fucking meant but what does that exactly mean when they say you should date when you're older? So I would always try and hide my puppy love relationships. I don't know if that's what it's called, but I was always being watched by them, or they either hired one of their friends to always watch wherever I went, which was also very scary because I don't know how that happened. And at the time, technology wasn't that advanced. So they probably waited until school was over to literally track me down. But anyways, I could get into a whole nother episode with that because the person I dated back in grade 6 they were probably traumatized by my parents because that shit did not fly by very well on them, and I hope he's doing well. Anyways, my whole family, like my aunties and uncles, were on a different fucking level. They just had control over my life. This is gonna be me kind of talking about a breakup, but not really, but it's also just like toxicity of relationships. But I knew this guy back in junior high, and up until high school, we used to be really good friends. And when I tell you guys I was obsessed with him, I was obsessed. But I know he wasn't good for me because there were so many red flags about him that I honestly did not really care. I was just like, he's gonna be mine, and that's that. Sorry, but any girl that comes to him, I'm gonna take her down. I was literally that bitch where I would just be so freaking psycho. I would just be so savage where I just did not care. Anyways. But I knew it was toxic, so I eventually had to cut it off and tell myself, I don't need him. And I was so young at the time because this was before I started dating Brayden. And if you guys don't know, we've been dating since I was 15. So yeah, this was before that. And for some reason, I was obsessed over this guy before I met Brayden. Anyways, at the beginning of me and Brayden's relationship, this when everything took a turn of me and my parents' relationship of getting worse. Hold on, this will all come into it of making sense. But when I lived with Brayden in the beginning of our relationship, because I did move in with him due to my parents being very toxic, I had to find a way to move out and just stay at his place. But anyways, a few months later of me living at Brayden's place, I found out that the guy that I had a thing for had passed away, and it really broke my heart. It doesn't really relate to a heartbreak, but it's almost kind of the same relatability of kind of going through one, if that makes sense, or just going through this toxic cycle of being in a relationship with someone who didn't really care about you. But that was my kind of heartbreak. What I'm glad for at this moment is that I found someone in my life, aka Brayden, who has been with me through it all. Like, we've grown up together, me and him. Ever since that guy passed away, Brayden was there to always support me. And he was there when I went to this guy's funeral. Anyways, that was a little bit deep. Let's move on. Let's do a little water break first, actually. It is currently 8:22. Oh my gosh. What I noticed, we are at a time in our lives where a lot of things are happening that are very tragic and we don't know how to cope with it. For some reason, there was a day that I was thinking about this very deeply, and we're at this age where we can fully comprehend that, our parents aren't going to be here forever and they're getting older. I know it's common sense because that is life, but when you're really young, you don't really care because you're at that point in your life where you're kind of a little bit self-absorbed with your own self that you don't really think about others. So that's kind of like a sad thing to think about. It's really hard to think about that stuff, and especially being at an age where you've dealt with a lot of death in your life, it's very traumatic. So let's talk about the school system and how much pressure our teachers and parents want us to go to university. This probably applies to a lot of people that are listening right now, but we go to school, graduate from high school, you do internships, graduate from college or university, and yet we're not making a living from our wage, and we're also being underpaid. Hear me out. University is a scam. We're wasting so much money. I just feel like with the money that's being thrown, why don't we use that money to actually take advantage of using that to do what we want with our lives? And who knows, maybe you you don't know what you want to be doing in your life at that moment, but maybe saving that or using it into an online course that might be a lot more beneficial than just learning it in university. Unless you're a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, or whatever. I do love how people are taking more of a chance to have a gap year after high school to really figure out who the fuck they are, because when you go straight into university, you don't really know what you want to be taking, and that was my mistake that I did. I literally just kept dropping out of every single class that I did because it wasn't something that I was interested in. Every time my parents were forcing me to go to university, I would take a class and then I would end up dropping out. My teachers would email me being like, hey, are you attending? Are you attending class? Like, what's going on here? Are you okay? Dropped out how many times? 3 times, but graduated once, which was like a unit clerk certification. Was it worth the money? Not really, because I'm not even working in that type of industry. I'm not even working in the healthcare industry. So why did I take that? Because it was for my parents. But I learned that the hard way. Anyways, that was fun because, learning is always fun, but that wasn't my type of fun, being in that class. So take your time if you don't know what to do, because you'll eventually find your passion with where you want to be going in life. And even if it takes you a year, 2 years, or whatever, that year can really change your life to doing something better than taking a class you hate. If you are in university, you are in college, don't feel bad with maybe the class you're taking, because maybe you're just trying it out, or you're trying to finish your major or whatever, or you're just doing something that you actually like to do. Don't worry about what I'm saying, because I wish I was you, and I wish I was able to find a course in school I did enjoy. So props to you if you're in school and you found something that you actually like, because it's hard nowadays when your parents or someone just forces you, telling you, go to school and do this and get a job. A lot of the times people get depressed and hate it. But anyways, moving on. But even though I'm talking about all of this, one important thing that I do want to tell you guys is that you should always keep educating yourself in books, courses you see online, and learning new things from other people, because education is also very important. So you don't want to just stop learning. So apparently our 20s are so-called the panic years because we have all this pressure to figure out everything by 30. I remember in my early 20s, I would be embarrassed and I didn't want anyone to find out that I had no plans on the weekends or on a Friday night. Everyone I knew were pretty much all still friends at the time, or still are, but every time I opened up Snapchat or Instagram, everyone was partying, and it made me feel a little upset about myself, and it made me feel like I was missing out in a way, even though those friends at the time, they did not care about me whatsoever. But it just made me feel like I was missing out just because they were partying and drinking. And I know I shouldn't have to feel bad about missing out, because if I were there to be in the first place, I would regret it anyways. So what's the point of me just having this fear of missing out when if I were to be in that position of partying and drinking every weekend, I would just hate my life. So last thing I want to talk about before I end this podcast is that as much pain and confusion we are in our 20s, we don't really give ourselves enough credit to be where we are. We work so hard to be at this stage in our lives where only to feel like we're not even there yet. It seems like to me it becomes a cycle where we just keep chasing on the next big thing instead of embracing for how far we've come. So take this time and just please be proud of yourself for how far you've come. And I need to give myself credit for that too, because when I think about all my successes in life, and these are small successes with goals I've reached, I don't give myself enough credit for that. We're always just so much into our heads where we feel like it's not enough. And it might just also be why we think like that, because of society or how our parents were just pressured to thinking that we always need to be doing better. But just know that we are doing okay. We're doing fine. We're all thriving, okay? Maybe for some of us, we're going through stuff right now, but I know we can always get out of this. I just know it. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I literally sacrificed myself to still be talking. on the mic when it's this dark out, when I should be in my house right now and not being out here. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure you guys follow all my platforms: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Give a 5-star rating on Spotify, give a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, because it does help with the show. It does help with new people coming on and just wanting to find something to listen to that they might relate to, or just want some new podcasts to listen to. It would just help out so much. So do all that you can to support me in some way. And I just want to say thank you guys again for even listening on today's episode. And I hope you guys are doing amazing. Love you guys so much. And I will see you guys next week.